The time is now. Episode 319.
One thing about visibility I wish people knew is that it's not about you. It's about who you're here to serve, communicate with, connect with, add value. I think that makes the whole visibility experience much less daunting or threatening and much more approachable and even fulfilling and rewarding.
Welcome to The Time Is Now, the podcast for mission-driven solopreneurs ready to take action and go from invisible to in demand. I am your host, Emel Deregi. My mission is to help you cut through the noise, get crystal clear on your strategy, and position yourself as the go-to expert in your field. But this podcast isn't just about marketing. It's also about building your resilience and staying ahead of the shifts in our world so you can be the leader and change maker you truly are. This is your time to create more growth, alignment, and impact in your business. So many solopreneurs struggle with visibility, not because they don't have something valuable to say, but because showing up as ourselves can feel really risky. You might worry about judgment, about saying too much, about not fitting to the image of what people expect from you. But the truth is, your message can't make an impact if you keep it hidden. So today, we're talking about the courage to be yourself, to own your story, and to embrace visibility as an act of service and not just self-promotion. My guest, Katia Vlachos, knows this journey very intimately. Through her book, Uncaged, A Good Girl's Journey to Reinvention, she opened up about her own transformation journey and reinvention, and the courage it took to divorce and start her life from scratch. So Katia is a reinvention coach, speaker, and best-selling author. She helps accomplished women break free from the invisible rules of perfection and approval so they can reconnect with their voice, their worth, and their full potential. Her work has been featured in the New York Times, Financial Times, Harvard Business Review, Forbes, BBC Radio, and so many international outlets. Very impressive. And we're here to explore with her what it really takes to live uncaged, share your truth, and step up to the next bold chapter of your life. Katia, I'm so excited to have you again on the podcast, and welcome to The Time Is Now.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's always a joy.
It's been such an inspiration to watch you in the past couple of years. You've been on the podcast a few years ago, and since then, so much has happened. You have launched your book, you have shared your truth with the world, and you have lived even more uncaged to be more visible to share that world. In your book, Uncaged, you describe how so many women live inside invisible rules of approval, of performance, and perfectionism. And I wondered if you could give us a bit of a glimpse of what did that look like for you? When did you start noticing?
So I entered the cage very young. A lot of us do, actually. So I was 4 when I started becoming what I call in the book the good Greek girl. When I started noticing there are certain things I needed to do and certain ways I needed to show up in order to get what I craved, which was approval, acknowledgement, attention, even love. And in my case, that was, like I said, being good with a good girl, being self-sacrificing, being accommodating, excelling at everything, basically checking all the boxes. And I did that for a big part of my adult life till about my early 40s. And at that point, I hit a wall. I realized, I mean, many things happened, but I realized I did not recognize the person I had become. Like I was feeling alienated from myself. I didn't actually like myself. There was a lot of dissonance, and I couldn't like things felt off, but I couldn't quite put my finger on what it was. I was in a marriage where I didn't feel seen or understood, where I felt like I had to be a certain way because like being fully me, whatever that was not acceptable. And at the end of the day, I realized I had no agency over my life. That was pretty scary to realize that I'm losing myself. Like if I keep going like this, I'm gonna lose myself. And that's when kind of uh, it was kind of a gradual realization, but it did peak at the end. There was some like a decisive event that
Mm.
or a triggering event that
That's
happened.
in the book.
It's in the book,
Oh.
exactly. I'm not going to reveal that. I'm not going to reveal that, but it's like right at the beginning of the book. So, but what happened to me is not unique. Like, it happens a lot in midlife usually, or when there's something big happening in people's life, like a milestone event. It can be a death, a divorce, being an empty nester, whatever it is. When people start asking the questions, whose life am I living? Who am I? Do I still feel like myself? And all these kinds of questions that I started asking myself, and that led to the uncaging, as we call it.
You've written such a beautiful book, so we'll talk a little bit more about it. But you've taken your personal experience and then your own professional experience as a coach to now help other women. First of all, like identify that moment, but also do something about it. And so for women who are listening now and who are still torn between pleasing and being true to themselves, so what is that first internal step that you usually invite your clients to take so that they can get uncaged?
Hmm, very good question. We are creating a language, and I often get people who reach out like they're interested in working with me, and they use the language. I was like, okay, this is my cage, and this is this bar, and this is the other bar, and this is what my encaging would look like. And I'm like, oh my God, I love this because we've given language to people to articulate certain things that may have been harder to do until then. So that's
It's
really
fascinating.
uh, yeah, I love it. No, but the first thing we do, well, there's two things, but I think the most fundamental is what I will share is a lot of the women who come to me like feel like I did, like they don't recognize themselves, like they've moved so far away from their true essence that they find it really hard to they feel lost, they feel stuck, and so the first thing we do is we actually find that person again, like reconnect with that person. It may have been, aspects of themselves that they felt they couldn't have appear in public, that they were not acceptable, or they've hidden them, they've forgotten them, they've neglected them. Uh, but the really important parts of theirs, and they miss them. A lot of women will come and say, "Oh, I lost my confidence completely. I used to be confident." And we're like, no, that confidence is still there. That part of you is still there. It's just over the years, there's been so much conditioning coming on top of it, so many shoulds and musts and expectations and all the rules we feel like we have to follow. So we become somebody else, but we're not really. We're still ourselves. It's like removing the makeup. Or it's cold outside and you're wearing all the layers and you come in and kind of unpack, right? And that's where we find the core and the essence. And from that place, everything else becomes so much easier and intuitive and effortless, making choices, choosing directions, and setting boundaries and
Is it
all the
really
elements of the
effortless?
uncaging.
Be true here. Is it really effortless?
Yeah, it feels natural, and that's what makes it effortless. Of course, there's work. There's work, like the whole thing is, I mean, there's a lot of work that goes into it, but effortless in the sense that we don't agonize over it.
We know
Um,
that's what we want and we're decided.
yeah, we know it's challenging and it's hard, and setting boundaries can be really scary and uncomfortable. But when it feels like this is the right thing, like there's no alternative here, I'm doing what I feel is right, and that gives you the inner peace. I think so. That's what I mean when I'm saying effortless. It's not that there's no work involved.
The reason I wanted you on this podcast was because I feel like your story and the way you showed up is so connected. How you showed up in your business and promoting your book is so connected to the topic of visibility. On the first step is the inner step, the inner work that needs to happen when I work with my clients before they can embrace their visibility. There's so much work to do first for ourselves and inner work. and then comes the outer work, right? So when we read your book, it's deep, it's a memoir, right? It's not a self-help book. It's a memoir where you share your deep, intimate story and your family story and how you got to divorce and your kids' story, right? So it's deeply intimate. Just that, writing a book about that is already courageous enough. But on top of it, you went full in promoting this book with huge PR, where you've been all over the world in major media sharing your story, and now you have your family seeing that. I would love if you could share with us, how was that experience for you to kind of get exposed and deal with that maybe fear of judgment? How was it for you and those around you?
Such a good question. The first answer I have to that, there's many answers, but the first one is like, I had no idea.
Maybe
So
that's better.
I was so yeah, it was good because I don't know if I would have done it or it would have been harder. No, I really felt I had to write this book and I wanted this book out. I had no idea what the impact would be and what the reactions would be. When it comes to my family, especially, my children, I wrote a book that I was totally comfortable with my children reading. That doesn't mean I sugarcoat anything, but it means I'm expressing my truth in a way that it's not going to be traumatizing to them. So that was really important for me. So there are some parts that are not in there, believe it or not.
There's a lot already.
Exactly. No, but that was really important to me. The second thing that around the writing of the book is I don't. This book is not about bashing anybody or
Mm.
or you're
It's done
passing
with
judgment on
respect. Yeah,
anybody.
there's a lot of
It's done with
respect.
respect, and it's not even it's the facts. It's the way I experienced the facts, and it's my truth, not somebody else's. And I let my readers make up their own minds. Right. That's also respecting your reader as a writer. You're not going to tell your reader what to think. They're going to make up their own minds. So also that was really important to me because I am talking about my divorce. The person is still out there, even if the names have been changed. Those who know, they know. And I wanted to be mindful of that. Now, when it comes to the broader public, I it was interesting because I wasn't expecting the haters. I don't know why, because I've never done this before, probably. So when I had went public, there was one instance where I got a lot of hate
Well, one of the
comments to an
articles that was
article.
written about you went viral,
Yeah,
if I remember well.
yeah,
Is that correct?
yeah, yeah.
Complete.
There was some hate that came up there, and while momentarily for like about an hour, I freaked out about it. Then, with the help of a very gracious journalist who wrote the article, I realized I'm onto something. If people are reacting that way, then it means there's something important here that I need to stand behind. I mean, I was going to stand behind it anyway, but it really encouraged me. This is a message that needs to be out there, and it's making people uncomfortable. Great, and it's not about me; it's about them mostly. And I'm just gonna keep telling my truth. So I turned it around, and also because I was onto something, the article did so well, right? So thank you, haters. Like, very grateful for that, and for the revelation and for the impact it allows me to have.
If I remember, something like you were breaking couples, breaking families, things along those
Promoting
lines.
divorce, no.
Haters. It was rough. So it's good that you say now, thank you, haters, because you see that there's an advantage to it in terms of PR. But
Yeah,
most importantly, if there were no haters, then there wouldn't be a topic of discussion, right? There wouldn't be
yeah,
a truth
yeah.
to hold. And that's exactly the point that you're making in the book. But you got the negative side of the haters, although you see it now as a positive. What other maybe positive surprises you got from putting yourself out there that you didn't expect?
So the haters were just like a tiny, like literally this one article. Of course, it was a very public article. It was like a big national newspaper in the UK. So it was very high profile, but that was it. Most all other reactions I had to the book were incredible. And that, yeah, I didn't expect. I mean, I expected people would like it, like my first book, and get very good comments and stuff, but people reach out, strangers reaching out and sending me, very intimate letters and notes about the impact it's had on them, about how, my story encouraged them to, to take steps, to look at their own stories, to set their own boundaries, how they felt seen, right? And understood. That was huge. So it made the whole thing worth it. It was, yeah, like the most rewarding part of writing this book and having it out there is to see that it is actually having the impact I dreamt about, but I didn't dare believe in, right? Like it was the dream,
It's been
basically.
amazing to watch this journey. So, as I said, one of the reasons I wanted you also on the podcast because my experience working with so many solopreneurs, once they do the inner work of clarifying what's their message, what they want to share out there, what they want to put out there, comes the moment when everything is ready and the last thing left is to actually do it and put it out there and share it with the world. And that's where the fears creep in sometimes, the self-doubt and the whole questioning about visibility and authenticity and all of that. What would be your advice to those who have a strong message to share and are hesitant to put it out there, either for privacy reasons or for the fear of not being authentic enough and showing up authentically?
So there's a balance, right? And the balance is different for every person. The balance between how much you reveal and how much you keep private. But also on the other side of the balance is how much impact do you have, right? Or how much impact could you have? So I think it's important to find out what are we comfortable with. I don't like oversharing, believe it or not, in my normal world. I mean, this book was tough, totally, I guess some people would call it oversharing. No, I didn't think of it as I was writing it. I didn't think it was, but you know what I mean? Like we each have our own level of comfort. But what I would say is question that. Like, is this because you want to protect people and protect your privacy, or is there also fear involved? And if there is some fear, what's that about? Ask the questions, question it. Just make sure that there's you're doing this for the right reasons and not because if I share this, I will be judged. Or,
Mm.
like we're making a lot of assumptions that are untested. And I see it all the time with my clients. And then when we challenge the assumptions and we have them, take a small step and see, oh, okay, yeah, what I was worried about didn't actually happen. So a lot of our fears are not based on reality, unfortunately. A lot of them are based on conditioning and what we know it's what is appropriate. I mean, if I went with what's appropriate, I would have never written the book, right? Because oh my God, it's my private story and it's out in the open. In my culture, you know, it's not a thing. We don't do that. In a lot of cultures, I think you're supposed to keep, your private matters hidden and hushed and so, like examine the fear. That would be my one, find your balance, examine the fear. And the last piece of advice, which is probably most important, is figure out why you're doing this. Again, I wrote the book for a reason, right? I wanted to have a specific like contribution, a specific type of impact. That was my why. And I was very clear about that. That helped me deal with the visibility or with the fears or with the judgment that
Mm.
came. So connect to that. And your why is not about you, right? So shifting the focus from yourself to the people you want to serve, to the contribution you want to make, the impact, that makes visibility much more, I'm not going to say effortless. I'm going to say less threatening, more rewarding, easier to manage.
So, identifying where the fears comes and then honing into our big why to have the courage to do it. But I still feel like there is the whole part of how to face the backlashes, how to face the criticism if there is one, right? So, what gave you the courage to actually not care? Because at the end, that's what you help your clients as well. To at some point say, hey, other people can think what they want. You need to be courageous enough to not care about it.
Yeah. after we go through the usual kind of, oh, it's all about me and what did I do wrong, and
Mm,
starting to look for the what we did wrong. The next thing I thought about is, okay, do I need these people to validate me? Are these my people? Are these the people I want to have an impact on? No, they were all white males. Well, I don't know if they were white, but they sounded they were all men, right? Like maybe there was one woman out of like, I don't know, 80
okay. So
comments.
how about your kids, for example? Did you have to have their approval before you could put that out there?
I didn't ask for approval. I don't know if that's a bad thing. I wrote, like I said, I was very mindful and I trusted that, what I wrote would not hurt my kids, and it didn't, right? And I also allowed them, like there was no pressure on them to read the book. I don't think they've read the book, right? And I'm not putting, and not because they don't love me or they don't support me, like totally, they totally do, but they will read it in their time, right? Reading about your parents' divorce is not an easy thing. Or there's other parts in there that are not easy to read, not traumatizing, but not easy. But didn't no, I didn't ask permission because, like I said, I'm not bashing anyone. This is my truth, and I feel like I have the right to have that out there.
That
Honestly,
what I'm hearing
yeah,
is pure alignment with yourself. And I think that's what's needed here.
yeah,
Pure
exactly,
alignment with your
exactly,
message and knowing that what you're doing is not to hurt, is actually quite the opposite, to empower people. And hopefully, even your
exactly.
kids will feel that empowerment for themselves at some point if they want to.
Yeah.
But I found it very courageous. And I know that, the it was already courageous enough to write the book. It was another thing to also put it out there and share it with the world. But on top of it is that you have built a whole business around the concept of your book. We work together as well so that we can align your business strategy, your positioning to the book. Right. And I
Mhm.
was wondering if you could
Yes.
share your experience of what did you feel you needed at that time to be able to build that strategy of a business around that book.
I still remember our first VIP day, right? Or days
Somewhat.
where we brainstormed around the book. It was so helpful because I had the story and the concepts, but I needed to translate it into my key message. Like there has to be like one message. It has to be powerful, What are the words I'm using? How do I communicate the value of this work to my audience? So it's like you said, it's doing the inner work, but the inner work has to kind of translate to the outside as well. So part of it only was working on like the communication, the translating came with we came up with concepts like bold decisions and break free. I mean, this is all our work together, right? And I still use these words. They're still very much part of my message. Part of it was that, but there was also like the mindset part of putting myself out there and believing in the value that I'm adding. You were also like my champion in a way, not just like the marketing and the business coaching and all that, but you're also championing me and encouraging me. And there were a lot of ups and downs at the time because I was going through a lot of challenges, also health wise and personal challenges. So there's also like staying committed and believing in what I did and the value it's adding and just walking the talk, right? Not, I'm not just preaching Uncaged, but I'm living it. And your support with that was huge. So I think I see these two aspects of it. And okay, the third one, accountability is always huge, right? Like I could be thinking about this and strategizing for a while, but if without the accountability, it wouldn't be become reality.
It was not only
Yeah.
you were going through a lot of challenges, but on top of it, you had kind of finished the book and you were working really hard to find a editor. And I remember you were trying to do both at the same time. It was so impressive to see you commit to the whole process and see where you are today. I just want to take this moment to celebrate everything you've achieved so far. You've been amazing to watch. And one of the things that maybe you can also share your experience is all that hurdle that it is at the beginning. It's not easy to come from that idea to actually put it out to the world. And my experience that very often it takes 6 months to a year before we can finally go from the concept, the strategy, the messaging, the positioning to actually living what has been strategized and planned. Any advice, looking hindsight from your journey, from the moment you had the strategy to the moment you put it out there and start sharing it? Uh, what would you do differently?
Mm.
What would you do again the same way?
Very interesting. Advice would be, I feel like the time is needed. Like maybe if I didn't have the health challenges, this would have happened earlier. But I feel like, it needed like the message
Mature.
needed to mature. Yeah, it needed to mature. I needed to be in the place where I really was embodying it. So my advice would be like trust the process and be patient, but still do the work. Don't just like wait for things to happen, right? Or for the right time. Now we create the right
Time is
time,
now.
but the time is now. Exactly. The time is now. And the now may like stretch a little bit, right?
Exactly.
Because it's a process. I see it a lot with my group program participants now, where they're like, we do a lot of work on like gaining awareness. So there's like a lot of realizations and insights, and a lot of them are like, okay, but what do I do now? What do I do with these insights? Like, I need to do something. And I'm like, yes, but it's a process. And, we're going to like take it one step at a time, and you will see. You take a few steps, and then all the others are kind of starting to fall into place. But be patient and let it sink in, and let the, like, really, again, really embody the insights and the realizations. And then you will know what's next. But it's, in my experience, at least, I mean, I see a lot of people like going really fast. Maybe it works for them, but for me, this is how it worked. I had to really connect with the material, connect with the message, live it. It allowed me to show up so much more authentically, and with so much more conviction, I
Yeah.
think. The conviction needed to mature.
And I found that you were very courageous to start the marketing work while finishing the book and working on the book. Would you still recommend that?
Mm.
Like hindsight, like truthfully, or do you think you just did it too early or rushed it, or was it actually useful to do at the same time?
That was super useful. I mean, look, the manuscript was written. I was doing the editing and then looking
Mm.
for a publisher and all that. I think it was great because I started promoting the book before the book was out. And that I would recommend to anyone who's building something new and promoting it, is to warm up the audience. I mean, we work together on that, right? Start talking about the concepts, get people interested, gauge, which topics are resonating more than others. I think it's invaluable. So it was exactly the right time to work on it, and do all the groundwork, and start already being out
That's a
there.
There was another thing that came up in our work was the whole hesitation of putting content out there, sharing on social media. Look at you today. You're like a social media machine going viral and having so much engagement in every single one of your posts. And like, what has helped you go from shying away from posting regularly to I remember how you was even about networking, even networking was a thing.
Oh,
I don't like
right?
networking. It's not authentic. What
You
has
helped me
shifted?
so much with that.
I'm so
Yeah,
happy
no,
to hear
really.
that. What are the shifts that happened to you that allowed you to today show up so brilliantly and be visible? Like visible is just a small world compared to how visible you are right now. So and you're showing up regularly almost every day on LinkedIn and social media. So what has allowed you to do that?
So I ask myself one question every day, and it has to do with impact and contribution, my why and all that. And I'm like, okay, what is my audience? What is this person? Because I try to think of one person, what do they need to hear from me today? And that that really helps me show up and share that, and see what happens, right? But it's really, I practice what I said earlier. it's not about, oh my God, what are they going to think? That's what stopped me from, I don't know, like, for example, doing video. I didn't do video. It was like, oh my God, what are people going to think? Suddenly she's doing video. And who does she think she is? Oh, she sucks, whatever. I was like, just go and do it because you're helping someone who is not going to get that help, is not going to get that encouragement or, that sense of feeling seen if you shut up or don't show up.
Wow.
So who am I holding back from by not showing up is also a good question. So yeah, that was the
Wow.
visibility part. The networking part, you really helped me because I was like, okay, if this doesn't feel authentic, let me give it a shot and look for the places where I actually find my people and find my tribe. So, I mean, I don't know if you remember, but I challenged myself. I mean, I'm going to be doing this for a few months and see what happens. And guess what? I found those places, right? And I created those places. But
Mhm.
it's shifting how you approach it. And now I help other people with it
I love it. It's
because, yeah,
unbelievable.
it's such a big revelation.
What a shift. Really impressive. So you do work a lot with your clients. So tell us how you help them now. What do you do for your clients?
So, most of my clients, or if not all of them, come to me because they want to change their lives. They want to reinvent themselves. Like I said, they use the words, I want to get out of the cage. This is my cage. I don't want it anymore. I have a signature methodology, a series of steps I take them through. They're not linear. We can go back and forth. Depending on, like, if I'm doing private work, we adapt it to their needs. But there's certain kind of milestones that you go through when you go through reinvention. And one of them already I shared is like finding the essence, connecting to your essential self, as we call it. And then from that place, tackling all the other steps. But it has to do with, like alignment, aligning with your values, your vision, your purpose, what you're here on this earth to do. It has to do with, figuring out an action plan, dealing with all the inner voices that like to hold us back when we start to take action and we start to gain momentum. So dealing with those. So what this methodology, this program, whatever does is it has the practical part, like the action, the steps, and all that, but there's a lot of it around the mindset. Because being uncaged is not just like, and reinventing yourself is not just taking the steps. It's more like, how do you walk the talk? How do you embody it? How do you, feel grounded and yourself and validated from the inside? Right? Because that makes you immune to external validation, or that makes you immune to the setbacks. You're not held back by all these things, but you learn to navigate them. So I do that in private, but now I also have a new group program, which I call the Uncaged Method Mastermind, and it's 12 weeks. So we go through that process as a group, and it is a whole other dynamic, but incredibly powerful and rewarding. Yeah, so these are the two ways. And of course, I still write and post and try to show up,
You're more than
speak.
trying. You're showing up every
I do
step
my
of the
best.
way. Thank you so much for sharing that. Actually,
Wow.
before we say
Thank
goodbye,
you.
is there one more anything you feel like we missed out from the conversation you want to make sure to share?
Yeah, what I wanted to say about the cages, because very often people will, not often, but sometimes people will listen to all these concepts and be like, no, I'm not, like, this doesn't apply to me because I'm leading my life and I'm making choices and they're my choices and I'm aligned and all that. Yes. And cages can be obvious, but they can also be sneaky, and they can look like choices. I recently had someone in my group say, well, I'm a people pleaser, but I choose that because I like to help people. And I'm a nice person and she's wonderful, but it's still a cage. Even if we choose or we think we choose, right? Because sometimes these choices, we made them so early in life that they feel like they're ours, but they're not really ours. So here, what I wanted to say is, like, just keep asking, like, be alert. What could be a cage? I I find them every day, right? I miss Uncaged, and I still find my own. It can be giving a speech somewhere, and because the organizer told me, oh, I have to know it by heart, and I very bad at learning things by heart, and I will torture myself for days, and at the end, someone else told me, like, I was working with someone, and like, why are you caging yourself with this thing? Like, just find another way to do it. Right? So it can be little things that we don't think, but they are ways we limit
Mm.
ourselves. So just be open minded about it,
Um,
and look for them. They're everywhere.
we all have our cages for sure. So now if we want to get freed from to get uncaged, what is the best way to find you and reach out to you and to learn from your great insights?
So my website, katiavlachos.com, where you have everything, the private coaching, the group program. There's like a free quiz you can take, and there'll be more. I'm preparing a new one. And of course, social media. Please connect with me on LinkedIn, on Instagram, Katia.Vlachos. It's very easy. It's just my name. So if you even just Google me, you'll find it.
So, my dear
Hard to miss.
listeners, I will put all the links you need to find Katya in the show notes of this episode. You just need to go to thetimeisnow.biz/319. Thank you so much, Katya, for sharing your inspirational journey and uplifting. I hope all of you who are listening felt empowered to now show up, get uncaged, and embrace your message so that you can be invisible and make an impact, right? Go from invisible to in demand requires the courage to get uncaged from everything that's holding us back. And I love how your story, Katya, helped us be able to find that inspiration. So thank you so much for your trust and for sharing your story with us here today. Just one last thing before we say goodbye. If you had to repeat the sentence, the time is now to, what would you say?
The time is now to lead an uncaged life.
Amen. And thank you to all of you who are listening. I can't wait to see you in the next episode. And stay tuned to turn your challenges into great opportunities. And the time is now to create more growth, freedom, and impact with your business.